On this edition of Good Day DePaul, Brandon Johnson is Chicago's new mayor.
DePaul deals with a budget shortfall.
And Demonthon 2023, DePaul dances for the children at Lurie Children's Hospital. I'm Juliana Plies.
I'm Ariana Allen, and this is Good Day DePaul. Brandon Johnson is the new mayor of Chicago, defeating Paul Vallis in the runoff election. Johnson won 51% of the vote to 49% for Vallis. I was at Johnson headquarters on this historic night. Brandon Johnson hosts a watch party in downtown Chicago with hopes of being the city's 57th mayor. Johnson supporters poured in, watching and cheering the results. The atmosphere in the room was electric as Johnson went toe-to-toe with opponent and former Chicago Public Schools CEO Paul Vallis. The two were locked in a close battle the entire night. A roar went up when the final results were announced. Johnson had been elected the 57th mayor of the city of Chicago with 51% of the vote. And then the party began. The DJ turned the music up and supporters celebrated until the president of the Chicago Teachers Union, Stacey Davis Gates, began Johnson's introduction shortly before 10 p.m.
This movement of community and love and justice is going to transform not just the city of Chicago, but the United States of America.
Johnson, accompanied by his wife and children, took the stage to address an excited crowd.
Chicago, how the heck are you? To the Chicagoans who did not vote for me, here's what I want you to know. Here's what I want you to know. That I care about you, I value you, and I want to hear from you. I want to work with you. And I'll be the mayor for you too.
Yes!
Because this campaign has always been about building a better, stronger, safer Chicago for all the people of Chicago. Chicago, tonight is just the beginning. With our voices and our votes, we have ushered in a new chapter in the history of our city. The truth is, the people have always worked for Chicago. Whether you wake up early to open the doors of your businesses, or teach middle school, or wear a badge to protect our streets, or nurse patients in need, or provide child care services, you have always worked for this city. And now Chicago will begin to work for its people, all the people. The heart of this movement has always been about investing in people. I'll be honest, this is personal for me. Investing in people is at the heart of this campaign because I've seen what disinvestment looks like. And when I talk about this city feeling unsafe for so many, it's because as a husband, as a father, raising 3 children on the west side of Chicago, I've had to shield my children from bullets that fly right outside our front door. Or the student who looked me in the face, who said, Mr. Johnson, you shouldn't be teaching here. You should be teaching at a good school. For too many people in the city of Chicago, we recognize value, but for too many of us, we don't believe that we deserve it. That changes under a Johnson administration. Because there's more than enough for everybody in the city of Chicago.
Johnson, who's been serving on the Cook County Board of Commissioners, is a former Chicago Public Schools teacher. and an organizer for the CTU, the Chicago Teachers Union. He'll be tasked with negotiating a new contract with the CTU, addressing crime in the city, helping a struggling downtown that's been impacted by the pandemic, and dealing with countless other difficult issues. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Ariana Allen.
Meanwhile, for Paul Vallis supporters, it was a disappointing night. Good Day DePaul's Stefania Rodriguez has that story.
The highly anticipated runoff election is finally here, and Chicago voters will decide between two candidates for the city's next mayor, Paul Vallis or Brandon Johnson. I'm here at Vallis's election night event, waiting for the results, which due to a high number of mail-in ballots, we may not get tonight. Still, as Vallis cast his vote today, he said it's been a great campaign, and he's confident he'll have success. An intense and heated election until the very end. The two candidates promoted different policies over voters' biggest concern, public safety. Johnson promoted a progressive treatment not trauma plan, which would decrease the city's police budget and use other approaches for dealing with crime. Vallis had a tough on crime message, which would expand the police force.
Chicago.
In the end, Johnson won, with Vallis stepping up to accept defeat and saying he'll support the city's new mayor.
And I look forward to working with him and providing him with the full support he needs to be successful.
As Chicago opens a new chapter, Vallis called on his followers to support the city's new mayor.
It's time for all Chicagoans to put aside their differences and to walk and to work together, supporting the daunting work ahead for our next mayor. I'm optimistic that better, brighter days are on the horizon.
For Good Day DePaul, Stefania Rodriguez.
So what led to the Johnson victory? How did he make it happen?
To get some analysis, I talked to several political experts at DePaul who say a number of factors led to the Johnson victory.
Brandon Johnson's victory was something few would have predicted just months ago. But DePaul political analyst Professor Nicholas Kachirobis saw some early signs that Johnson was making an impact.
Thought Brandon Johnson was impressive when I saw him at a debate before the primary, but I thought he was maybe a little bit too young and not unknown to the city.
But Johnson, a 47-year-old Cook County commissioner, started gaining dramatically in the polls.
It was a remarkable victory in the sense that back in December, Brandon Johnson was polling in the low single digits, 3 to 4%. He came out of nowhere to finish second in the municipal election in February. Johnson certainly expanded his base much more than Vallis did, which allowed him to win.
A critical issue for Johnson and Vallis was police funding. Johnson modified his earlier positions about moving funding from police to other services. But he still stressed a different approach to dealing with crime in the city.
Brandon Johnson convinced a lot of voters that he liked a different approach that invested more in mental health, that invested more in communities and tried to get at the root causes of crime. So it's clear that Johnson's message changed, that it became a little bit more sophisticated, and that some people, the people who voted for Johnson, preferred that message over Vallis's, which was basically, let's hire more police.
Now that he's been elected, many are anxious to see what a Johnson administration will look like.
I think it's definitely a new era for the city of Chicago, and it's exciting just to see all the new ideas and changes that are coming to fruition in the next few months.
Reporting for Good Day DePaul, I'm Juliana Plies.
On March 15th, DePaul President Robert Manuel sent an email to the university community. It dealt with the financial situation at DePaul. Manuel said that without corrective action, the university will face a budget gap in the coming fiscal year. Manuel said DePaul's Strategic Resource Allocation Committee has endorsed the proposed budget, one that offers some ideas on closing that budget gap. These include reviewing teaching load and scheduling, eliminating current vacant positions, and launching what Manuel called a voluntary separation incentive program for the administration and staff. Manuel emphasized that he hopes to cover the budget gap with some of these steps before considering staff reductions, which he says, quote, "We absolutely hope to avoid." Manuel also says the proposed budget includes merit increases for staff and faculty. Meanwhile, DePaul Provost Salma Ganem later expanded on the pay issue, saying the current budget proposal contains a 3.5% salary increase pool for faculty and staff. Ganem went on to say that the proposal also contains significant budget reductions in faculty, staff, and departmental expense categories.
On April 4th, the university moved ahead with one of the options we mentioned earlier for cutting costs, creating a voluntary separation incentive program for full-time administrators and staff. This means that employees agreeing to leave would receive compensation. About 200 people at DePaul are eligible and must make a decision on doing this by June 8th. These employees must meet the following criteria as of June 30th. They have to be at least age 55 with a minimum of 20 years of cumulative full-time service at DePaul, or they must be at least 62 with a minimum of 10 years of cumulative full-time service. Or finally, the sum of their age and cumulative full-time service equals at least 75. Again, only staff and administrators are eligible for this program. Faculty are not.
To clarify and discuss these various budget issues, DePaul President Robert Manuel recently held a news conference with campus media. Good Day DePaul's Natalie Host was there.
The term faculty and adjunct faculty who are the least protected of us.
DePaul students and some faculty demonstrated outside the Lincoln Park Student Center on April 10th, protesting possible cutbacks the university is making to deal with the budget deficit. Students were concerned about professors possibly losing their jobs and how this and other spending cuts could affect the quality of education at DePaul.
This was dropped roughly 3 to 5 days ago on professors. There's emergency group meeting held, and this was, like I said, dropped. So clearly we reached a deficit this year. I believe it's somewhere around $50 million. That's a big amount. But we also made a lot of money during COVID because there wasn't anyone being housed at DePaul. Or, all our classes were online. They didn't have to pay for supplies in the same way. Essentially, to cover that, not only are we suggesting that some people take cuts on the administrative level, but if they don't want to do that, there is technically a $1 billion endowment fund. That is for our rainy days. This is our rainy day.
Later that same day, DePaul President Robert Manuel held a news conference to discuss the budget situation, including cutbacks at the John T. Richardson Library on the Lincoln Park campus, cutbacks that concerned many on the faculty council. Manuel said those cutbacks are being modified.
Today was one where the library cuts seemed to be really big, 1.5 million. And they did the analysis of what that would do to the ability of the library to provide digital services or purchase the collection subscriptions. It's clear that that's an untenable situation to be in. And so just this morning, I sent to the faculty council a note that said, thank you for bringing that up, confirmed it with the library folks, and now that is not going to be the budget number for the library.
Manuel also discussed steps the university is taking to minimize the loss of employee jobs.
The mission-based approach here was to say, instead of just terminating people, let's figure out how to make it as little concern to folks' life as we can. So we offered the voluntary separation program, which is a way to say to somebody who is very close to retirement, here's a soft landing into retirement, and we will compensate you for that year, which is different than saying you're terminated and you have to leave. Then we look at vacant positions. In my office alone, I've held 4 or 5 different positions vacant so that we're not staffing them up at the moment to make sure we're not terminating live people in live positions. And only as a last resort would that be the case. And so on the staff side, the conversation with staff council and with the deans, the vice presidents, and everybody was, Let's figure out the least disruptive way through this to people's lives. Let's say there are 240 term faculty, right? These are contract faculty, but not tenured. I believe that there are 6 who won't have renewals next year. And so that is both and I don't know what schools are in or where they are, but that's a dean decision inside of the environment of who's enrolling in what classes and where they're headed. And the staff is different, right? The staff goes through this retirement program first, the holding free of vacant positions second, and then only after that do we look at live reductions.
President Manuel stressed the importance of student feedback and says he wants students to understand why these cutbacks are being made. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Natalie Host.
On March 30th, the DePaul community received a public safety alert about a battery at the DePaul Center on the Loop campus. A female reportedly approached 2 students at the top of the first floor escalator. The woman then allegedly pushed one of the students and held the other's head down on the handrail until they reached the bottom of the escalator. So far, no reports of any arrests in this incident.
The president of Temple University in Philadelphia has resigned. Jason Wingard, the university's first Black president, submitted his resignation following a wave of violence around campus and criticism from faculty.
In early April, teachers went on strike at 3 Illinois colleges: Chicago State, Eastern Illinois, and Governor State. The primary issues in these strikes are pay and teacher workload. Meanwhile, at Rutgers University in New Jersey, both teachers and staff went on strike on April 10th. Again, pay is a primary issue.
Next on Good Day DePaul Sports, a great season for the DePaul women's tennis team.
And some big names coming to Lollapalooza. Those stories when we return.
2004 Skateboard Championship.
High school, moped.
How about you, Slim? Anything?
Something.
Looks like Slim's got a little paper cut.
It's nothing.
Come on, man. No, I'm gonna make you tell me.
Hey, kidney transplant.
When, dude? I didn't know you were sick.
I was donating it.
Someone in your family?
You gave your kidney to a complete stranger?
Yeah, saved his life.
Wow. All right.
Everyone can save a life by being a living organ donor on matchingdonors.com.
Caleb Nixon is here now with Good Day DePaul Sports. Caleb?
Thanks, Ariana. DePaul women's basketball star Anissa Morrow has announced through her Twitter page that she is leaving the university and entering the transfer portal. Morrow is coming off a season where she averaged 25.7 points and 12.2 rebounds per game. She exits DePaul with many accolades, including the 2021-2022 Big East Freshman of the Year and All-American honors in that season as well. She is highly regarded as one of the most talented players in the portal and will draw interest throughout the major conferences. In other DePaul women's basketball news, Darion Rogers and Kiki Rimmer have also announced through their Twitter pages that they are transferring. Kiki Rimmer has already chosen her next destination, and that will be for the UIC Flames. Rogers is coming off a season where she averaged 16.8 points per game and was the second leading scorer on the team. After all of these departures, the women's basketball team is down to just 9 players on the roster. In men's basketball, DePaul's Mo Gibson participated in the Tax Act Men's Three-Point Championship in Houston, Texas this past week. Gibson was one of 8 college players selected to compete in the event. Detroit Mercy's Antoine Davis dominated the event and ended up winning the competition. In other DePaul basketball news, Coach Tony Stubblefield picked up 2 transfers in the early stages of recruitment. Jaden Henley and Jeremiah Oden will join the Blue Demons this upcoming season. Henley arrives from the University of Minnesota and will join the roster as a sophomore forward. Oden comes from the University of Wyoming and returns home to Chicago. He attended Sunrise Christian High School and now arrives at DePaul with 2 more years of eligibility. Finally, in men's basketball news, Philmon Gebrewit and Ahmad Bynum have decided to enter the transfer portal. Bynum last appeared in a game on January 4th and will now be looking for a new home as a sophomore. Gebrewit will enter the portal as a graduate transfer with 1 year left of eligibility. The DePaul women's tennis team is nearing the end of their regular season. I headed out to XS Tennis to cover their recent matchup against the Seton Hall Pirates. The DePaul women's tennis team comes into this Big East matchup against the Seton Hall Pirates with a 4-1 record in conference play. For Seton Hall, only 4 players were medically cleared to compete, meaning they would forfeit courts 5 and 6 in singles play. We start in doubles with Lenka Antonjevic and Yulia Kisubashiva getting things rolling for the Blue Demons. The best doubles team on the roster did exactly what they were supposed to do, winning the match 6-1. DePaul jumped out to a quick 3-0 lead. In singles play, it was DePaul's Valentina Martin starting off hot on the number 4 court. Battling with Seton Hall's Emily O'Donovan, Martin was able to win the first set 6-1. She continued her dominance in the second set and easily earned DePaul their 4th point of the contest, walking away from the second set with a 6-2 victory and clinching her match. The Blue Demons' Hannah Smith also defeated her opponent in straight sets. While the second set was more challenging, she took care of business, winning 6-2 and 6-3. With the victory, Smith moved to 5-1 in singles against Big East opponents. In the final single match, Yulia Kisubashiva had some challenges but ended up winning consecutive sets, both by a score of 6-3. The Southpaw dominated from top to bottom and ended up securing DePaul's sweep over Seton Hall.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a really good match. I think everyone was disciplined, played with urgency, good intensity, like all the things that we're looking for. I think we did on every court. I mean, I think we're just like meeting our standards, and we're just meeting them daily, and that's what you're seeing like on the court, on the match day court. I think in years past where we've had days where we like haven't quite met our standards, and that's where we've fallen short. So now I think we're doing a really good job of being disciplined in that, and it just gives us the best chance to win. We're not going to win every match, but we should be in every match.
The DePaul Blue Demons defeated the Seton Hall Pirates by a score of 6-0. They now advance to 10-8 in the regular season and 5-1 in Big East play. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Caleb Nixon. Overall, it's been a successful season for the women's tennis team, and their win over Seton Hall was much like their season as a whole. It's been a bounce-back year for the DePaul women's tennis team, currently sitting at 11-8 in the regular season and 6-1 in conference play. They've improved both records from just a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think our biggest strength is that we're a team. You know, they all can lean on each other. They all pull, like, from the support of each other. They can, you know, do greater things than they could as an individual. We really do have that synergy, and I think that's ultimately our biggest strength.
With a combined 5 senior and graduate players, this group is experienced and knows what it takes to form a successful team. Maddie Yergler is one of those older players. She's competed in both singles and doubles this season, but says doubles is personally more enjoyable.
Doubles is just, I think, more fun because you have someone by your side. You just have someone to talk to. You're not going through anything by yourself, and it's more like tactical and everything with your partner.
Yergler credits this fun and success to the values that this team has set from the start.
We really value communication and positivity and really working with each other through all of our problems. And so off the court, we're all really close, and so that helps a lot too. We know what's going on and off the court with each other.
While these values are the standard for the team, Valentina Martin, another graduate player, says the energy of this team is what drives her to performing at her best.
I'd like to say we're like the loudest team in the Big East, probably in the country. But yeah, I think obviously it's really hard to bring energy every day, but I think for me specifically, I know that when my energy is like up here, I'm gonna be up here. So my game and my energy go hand in hand.
Martin says the success of this team comes back to their ability to work together as one.
And I think part of the reason why we are so successful is because we play for each other more than ourselves. And when you play for something bigger than yourself, then you can do things that you never imagined doing. And it's more fulfilling when you have people that support you and that you know that are fighting with you.
As the coach, RC says this is what's most enjoyable, when all the players buy into what she is leading.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's fun because everyone buys into the culture of the stuff we just talked about. So we have a bunch of energy givers, we have a bunch of hungry people, a bunch of humble people. So it's just so nice to be around people like that. And the relationships you can form in an environment like that, it's just, second to none.
The players are bought in, the coaches are bought in, and they're having fun throughout it all. That's what defines a real team. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Caleb Nixon. In track and field, DePaul's Darius Brown was recently named the Big East Men's Track Athlete of the Week after a record-breaking performance. Brown set a school record of 13.76 seconds in the 110-meter hurdles at UCF's Black and Gold Invite. Brown earned first place in the conference and fifth place among all Division I hurdlers. That's it for sports. Back to you, Juliana.
Thanks, Caleb. Richard Wilsey is DePaul's new vice president for facility operations. Wilsey replaces Bob Janis, who held the job for 22 years.
At the University of Chicago, graduate student workers have voted to unionize. This follows student workers voting to unionize at Northwestern University, Yale, and Southern California.
Next on Good Day DePaul, some big names are coming to Lollapalooza.
And a unique mosaic at DePaul with a COVID message. Those stories and more when we return.
Today, the heroes that fight day in and day out on the front lines. Those who are there, innovating in real time, saving lives and answering the call to care in times of crisis. American nurses. Nurses who have been there for each and every one of us in times of crisis for more than 150 years. Nurses are the pillar of strength and the foundation of healthcare and life itself. Nurses are there the day we are born. They are there when your family is in crisis, and they are there in the end. In confronting the most catastrophic health crisis in modern history, we must remember our American nurse heroes need our support as much as we need them. To show our gratitude for their courage and ensure they receive the critical education and support services they need, donate to the Coronavirus Response Fund for Nurses today, in honor of your American nurse hero.
Lollapalooza is coming in August at Grant Park, and we know the headliners. They include Kendrick Lamar, Tomorrow Together, Billie Eilish, and Red Hot Chili Peppers.
DePaul students recently danced nonstop for 12 hours. They were a part of the annual Demonthon fundraising effort, raising money for the kids at the Ann and Robert Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. The event raised almost $97,000 for families battling pediatric illness.
Face mask. For many of us, they will always symbolize COVID-19. Now, 2 DePaul professors have created a lasting testament to those masks. Good Day DePaul Sayla still has details.
Communications professor Jay Baglia and his colleague, photojournalist and Professor Robin Hecker collaborated on this digital photo mosaic of St. Vincent de Paul. Each tile in the mosaic includes a photo of a discarded mask found on the ground. When people click on various parts of the mosaic, different photos of a mask pop out. Baglia says, after taking the photos of the mask in various cities such as Chicago, Ontario, Brisbane, and Paris, the idea of putting the pictures into a mosaic came to him from Hecker after the two had a conversation in the hallway.
Little squares. But I thought the masks, from a health communication perspective, really marked what I perceived to be the beginning of the end of the pandemic. Right? We started wearing masks in the spring of 2020. There were some times over the course of those 2.5 years where the masks came back, where everyone was wearing them again, and then also some weeks and months where people weren't wearing the masks. But the masks on the ground, I thought, was kind of a signal that people are done with wearing masks. The numbers for the pandemic were dropping regularly. Someday, we will no longer see masks on the ground, I hope, knock wood. So I do think that there's ways in which the masks signal our frustration with the pandemic, our end of the pandemic, but the end isn't quite here yet.
Professor Hecker reflects on the mosaic's message, as well as why she felt St. Vincent de Paul was the perfect image to replicate for this project.
I think we're all just trying to make sense of what happened. And we were all kind of locked in our own apartments and experiencing things in isolation. And I think sometimes it helps to to get outside of your own experience and see what the big picture is. And that's what the mosaic does. You know, it takes these small little isolated incidents or pictures and make something bigger out of them. So I kind of think of it as the mosaic. You know, we're each one of those individual tiles in the mosaic, you know, but when we step back and look at the larger thing of how we all experience this thing together, I think throughout the pandemic, you know, I kept thinking, you know, what must be done? That's the question we're always being asked at DePaul. And, you know, I looked up different pictures of Vincent DePaul too. You know, there's a lot of different portraits and paintings of him. And I came back to that one. I liked the expression on his face. But, you know, he was all about providing healthcare to the poor, you know, and reaching the most marginalized people. And that's who was dying of COVID, you know, was the most marginalized people. People are low income, Black and brown communities, and people with health risks, you know, who are already more at risk, were the ones who are mostly dying of COVID. And I felt like I wanted to kind of draw attention to that. And by using Vincent DePaul's face, you know, I tried to make that connection more clear.
Baglia says the pandemic was an individual and collective experience at the same time.
What we would like people to take away from that is that the image itself of a single mask represents all of the ways in which worldwide we've experienced this pandemic as individuals, often as isolated individuals.
The mosaic includes 3,025 tiles, which is roughly equivalent to the weekly death rate of Americans who have been dying so far this year from COVID-19. Reporting for Good Day DePaul, I'm Selah Estelle.
That's all for this week's edition of Good Day DePaul. You can keep up with us by visiting our Vimeo channel at Good Day DePaul or by going to goodday.depaul.edu.
And make sure to check us out on Facebook.
And if you have any news tips, message us through the Good Day DePaul social media channels.
Thanks for watching. I'm Juliana Pelaez.
And I'm Ariana Allen. Have a good day, DePaul.